Good morning and welcome to Wake Up and Worship. In honor of our Big Fish Story week, as we look at the story of Jonah, I thought it would be fun to start out each day with a fish joke. And so today's joke or riddle is, what is the richest fish in the world? Hopefully you got it. Did you figure it out? A goldfish! Get it? Gold, rich, it's worth a lot. Okay. I know, pretty good. Let's stand up. It's time to wake up and worship.
You shine brighter than any star in the sky. Your light is shining through the dark of the night. Jesus, forever I find all that I am in your love, love, love. You were with me in every step that I take. Your love for me, you have called me by name. Jesus, forever I find all that I am in your love, love, love. Let the music play, hear us praise your name. See the darkness fade, dance the night away. We have found our place in our Savior's grace. Dance the night away. Your light is taking over me. Yeah. I find freedom in the light of your love, everlasting. You are more than enough, Jesus, forever. I find all that I am in your love, love, love. Let the music play, hear us praise your name. See the darkness fade, dance the night away. We have found our place in our Savior's grace. Dance the night away. Your light is taking over me. Your light is taking over me. I'm dancing 'cause your love has set me free. Your light is taking over me. Dance. All of my heart and soul, to you alone. You are the one I want now, forever. All of my heart is yours, forevermore. You are the one I want now, forever. All of my heart and soul, to you alone. You are the one I want now, forever. All of my heart is yours, forevermore. You are the one I want now, forever. Let the music play, hear us praise your name. See the darkness fade, dance the night away. We have found our place in our Savior's grace. Dance the night away. Your light is taking over me. Your light is taking over me. I'm dancing 'cause your love has set me free. Your light is taking over me. Dance.
Before he spoke creation, the God of heaven knew our names. Formed in his reflection, we are his glory on display. And his heart is good, he is always kind. With the cross he proved he is on our side. We are the sons, we are the daughters of God. No matter where we go, we're close to the Father's heart. And though we stumble, he will not let us fall. We are
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for Wake Up and Worship. All week long, we are going to be looking at big fish stories in the Bible. And so what we actually see is that fish are used a lot in the Bible. And part of the reason for this is because Jesus lived in an area where there were a lot of fishermen, there were a lot of seas and lakes, people ate fish, and so fish just come up a lot. We're not going to look at all the big fish stories, but we'll hit a couple of them. And so yesterday we looked at actually when Jesus uses Jonah's story about Jonah being in the belly of a fish to teach the religious leaders that they really are not paying attention to Jesus, who is their sign, like Jonah was, that they should stop going their way and start going God's way. Today we're going to look at another story about fish that kind of teaches a similar lesson, but I love this one because it gives us a little glimpse into the first part of heaven, which is pretty cool. And so it says just a couple pages over, and still in the book of Matthew, that Jesus is teaching his disciples. He's been teaching them a lot. He teaches his followers like all the time. And so he's been teaching them a bunch of different things, but here he talks to them about heaven. It says in Matthew 13, verse 47, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a fishing net that was thrown into the water and caught fish of every kind." And so I have a little net here to help us imagine this. And so it says the kingdom of heaven is like a fishing net, and it goes into the water and it pulls out all sorts of different kinds of fish. Then it says in verse 48, "When the net was full, they dragged it up onto the shore, sat down, and sorted the good fish into crates, but threw the bad ones away." So it says once the net gets up to the shore, they start sorting the fish, and they keep the good ones and they throw out the bad ones. Those ones don't get to stay. And so they keep the good fish, but any bad fish doesn't make it. And so here's where it relates it back to heaven, because we're not actually talking about fish. It says in verse 49, "That is the way it will be at the end of the world. The angels will come and separate the wicked people from the righteous, throwing the wicked into the fiery furnace." That's hell. And then it says, "Where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Do you understand all these things? And so it says that at the end of the world, when it's time for heaven and all of this is done, Jesus has come back, and it is time for us just to either be with God in heaven or to not. That the angels are going to come and they're going to separate the wicked from the righteous. And this is going to be like pulling up a net full of fish and saying, these are good fish and these are bad fish. And the bad fish get thrown out. The bad fish, the wicked people, get thrown out of heaven and instead are sent to hell, where they pay for their own sin because they weren't covered by the blood of Jesus. Now, when we read this, you might read it and think, okay, so I need to be a good fish, right? That's what we should all want. We should all want to be good fish that get to be in heaven with God someday. Now, if you think about that idea and you decide, I'm really going to be a good fish. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm going to give away all my toys. I'm going to go rake leaves for my neighbors and do all of these good things. That is not what a good fish is. When it uses the word good, it's talking about good fish and bad fish. But then when it talked about people, it said righteous and wicked. Righteous is doing the right thing. It's kind of like being good, but the Bible tells us that none of us are righteous. None of us are good enough on our own. None of us can be good fish because we have sin in us, and that keeps us from righteousness. That keeps us from ever being a good fish. We could never be good enough to get to heaven. And so when it's talking about that, the good fish, the righteous, are not people who are really good people on their own. They're people that belong to Jesus. We've seen this before, that when we give our hearts to Jesus and we follow him by making him Lord, he forgives us of our sin. Instead of seeing the bad, the wickedness, it's still there because we're not perfect. It's still there, but instead of seeing it, it's covered by the blood of Jesus. And so God doesn't see our wickedness or the bad anymore. He just sees righteousness because he sees the perfect blood of his son that paid for our sin on the cross. And so when he looks at us, he doesn't see our sin and our wickedness. He looks at us and he sees righteousness. It's not our righteousness. It's Jesus' righteousness that covers us. And then that should turn into somebody who does good things, but it's not because they're good. It's because Jesus is good and they are his follower. Remember, that's what like the fruit of the Spirit's all about. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Here's another verse that reminds us that our righteousness, the good that we do, is supposed to be Jesus' righteousness. In Philippians 1:11, it says, "May you always be filled with the fruit of your salvation." So fruit of salvation is saying, if you are saved, if you're a follower of Jesus, if he is your Lord, there should be fruit in your life. There should be proof. People should be able to see it by how you live. And so the fruit of your salvation is this: the righteous character produced in your life by Jesus Christ. The righteous character, the good that you do, the being kind and loving others and giving stuff away, being generous, serving each other, raking your neighbor's leaves. The righteous character, but it says, in your life by Jesus Christ. It's Jesus in you that turns your character, your behavior, and who you are into righteousness, into good. Because your good on your own is never good enough. You need to be covered by Jesus. You're made righteous by Jesus' blood. And then your actions on the outside that are righteous, they're not because of you, because you're good. They're because Jesus in you is good. And so you want to love him and serve him, because it says that the righteous character produced in your life by Jesus Christ will bring much glory and praise to God. You're not doing it to be good. You're doing it because you love God and you want to bring him praise and glory. Okay, back to our fish story. What was Jesus saying? He tells the disciples the kingdom of heaven is kind of like this. It's like this big fishing net comes full of fish, and then you bring it back to shore and you have to sort out the good fish from the bad fish. The good fish stay, the bad fish are thrown out. The kingdom of heaven is like that. Everyone's going to come and think, you know what, I think I belong here. I'm getting in, you know? Everybody wants to be there. No one wants to go to hell. That's awful. So they get there, but the angels are going to come and separate the wicked from the righteous, the good fish and the bad fish. The righteous, remember, not righteous on their own, but righteous because they're covered by the blood of Jesus, and God doesn't see their sin anymore because it's paid for on the cross by Jesus' blood. Those people that have followed Jesus and made him Lord, have asked for forgiveness for their sin, those people are the good fish, and they get to stay. Be the good fish. That doesn't mean you're really good and that's what's going to get you to heaven. It means that you decide you need Jesus to forgive you for your sin, and you ask him to do it, and you become his follower, becoming more like him each day. And so you do become a good fish, a better fish, doing good things because you love God and you want people to see that in your life so that maybe they'll love him too. And so be a good fish. Only the good fish, only the righteous, those covered by the blood of Jesus, will be in heaven someday. The rest are thrown out and cast into hell. Don't be a wicked fish, a bad fish that isn't covered by the blood of Jesus. We're going to look at this more tomorrow, how the righteous fish, the good fish, is not someone who just knows about Jesus. They have to actually follow him. So join us tomorrow as we look at that together with another big fish story. I'll see you at 9:45.